Hi everyone, this is Constellations here. So today we'll talk about Kokomi's Enabler support build. So the first video we did, Kokomi main DPS math video. Personally, I wasn't really impressed with it, but it's because she's a healer, so I don't think she's really meant to be a main DPS type of character. You can make it work, but she's not OP. But this build here is actually what I think is a very good build for her, and we'll talk about it more about why it is. So first off, you see that I'm using Trillion Tails or Dragon Slayers. You know when you see this catalyst, this is a support and an attack buffer. Okay, and not to mention, Kokomi makes very good use of the HP percentage substat from the weapon. So basically, if you're not too unlucky, as a F2P player, you should have R5 of this weapon. It's a 3-star weapon. So for purpose of this video, I'll just take it that it's R5, it's not R1 or R2, 3, 4. R5, which gives a 48% attack to the next character that you switch to after the character using this catalyst. Now there are some caveats to doing this, of course. The order in which you switch the character is important, but it does offer the option of providing a 48% attack, which is pretty substantial. And we'll talk more about other stuff that will make her good with this support build or enabler build altogether. So first off, just to simplify things, since there's no R1 or R5, there will be just these 5 artifact permutations. I'm not going to show them in detail per se. I'll just show the figures slowly so that you guys can pause the video and compare at any time if you want to. But essentially, it's the same as yesterday's or the days before. Okay, it's the same as the first Baal. It's the same as the first Kokomi math video, where you have HP means that HP Hydro healing bonus, or HP Hydro HP, and you have HP healing bonus, or HP, or even attack Hydro and healing bonus. Okay, so rows wise, we are allowing for 5 rows that go wrong. So in other words, this would be good artifacts, but not super perfect per se. You can even consider them as very good artifacts if you want to. But bear in mind that HP percentage, although it's easier to get than CR and CD, wanting a upgrade to always go into HP percentage is not that easy. Flat HP, flat defense, and defense percentage are the ones that I would say is easy. But somehow HP percentage is not that easy. At least that's my gut feel. Okay, or rather than saying gut feel, it's more like my experience from all the upgrades that I've done so far. I don't have like super OP 20 or 30 plus, sorry, I shouldn't say 20. So I don't have super OP 30% HP artifacts. The best I had was one that is 25% HP, but majority of them would be something like 10 and 15% HP. Which means that it only got upgraded with HP percentage once or twice. That's the norm, right? So, with that being the case, everything else is the same as the first Kokomi video. But you notice that our HP is slightly higher because in this particular setup, we are using 4-piece TToM, which is Tenacity of the Millilith. So this is the set item that gives the 2-piece effect is 20% HP boost. The 4-piece effect is 20% attack and 30% shield strength given to the entire team, to the nearby party members, which means that it works in co-op as well. It lasts for 3 seconds, you can proc it every 0.5 seconds. So it's actually quite, the limiting factor is the fact that it lasts for a short duration and you have to constantly proc it basically. But Kokomi is entirely capable of doing it, that's why this is a very good set for her. Right. Now, we'll go further down and just note that with the TToM 4-piece plus the Trillion Tails of Dragon Slayer R5, you are effectively able to give a 68% attack boost. Sorry, I somehow combined the word boost and buff. Okay, so anyway, 68% attack buff, which is pretty nice. If you think about it, Sarah's attack buff is only about 70+% on average, and that's on her very low base attack. for this is a 68% attack buff directly to your character. So if your character is someone that has a high base attack, using a high base attack weapon, so much so that their base attack is at 1k, you're going to gain even more from this 68%. It's going to be adding even more than a Sarah's attack buff. Let's not talk about Sarah C6. Okay, yeah. So these are the damage figures. I'll just pause here shortly for you guys to see. Level 6 elemental skill, level 9 elemental skill, level 6 burst, level 6 burst with level 1 normal attack talent. Notice that this is different from the first Kokomi math video, because for the first Kokomi math guide, what we did was we also take normal attack talents to always be the same as the burst and the elemental skill, basically. So the investment for enabler support is already upfront lower, because you don't need to invest in her normal attack talent. Which makes sense, right? I mean, most sub DPS characters, you don't need to level their normal attack, because you're not going to be using normal attacks on them. Well, for the most part anyway. So these are the damage figures. You'll notice that different from the previous video, I did add a C2 effect active healing, just to show how it looks like. Because the previous video, the first Kokomi math video, is focused on main DPS. Enabler support is focused on both her enabler ability as well as a support ability, which basically is her healing. So that's why this time around, in this video, I've included how the healing is increased when the C2 effect is active. Alright, so as we go down further, you have level 9 burst and level 12 burst. The red figures are for a artifact main stat comparison, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so first off, we will talk about the Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer. I did briefly mention it already, but the entire basis of assumption here is that this is a enabler support build that's focused on buffing teammates while providing constant hydro application as well as heals. Okay, when I do the math for the different weapons, we will adjust accordingly, because like for example for Prototype Amber, I'll say use it if you want more heal and some energy restoration. Everlasting Moonglow is also if you want more heals because of the healing bonus. Although it's not that worth it just to get it for the healing bonus. It does improve your burst damage by a little, but not by that much. I'm quite... I find this weapon to be pretty underwhelming, unfortunately, because I actually really like the design of this weapon. The aesthetics of it. Okay, now next up, now that we have done the basis of this, okay, we know that it's a Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer plus 4-piece tenacity of the Lilith. Let's talk about the enabler / support playstyle. Now the focus here is on using her elemental skill to enable hydro-related reactions while providing heals at the same time. 4-piece TToM also ensures that she provides a constant 20% attack buff. And in situations where we need more healing, that's when you use her burst to heal the team while providing some damage. I already showed the table earlier, so you can refer back to that to show the damage figures, to see the damage figures. But hydro-related reactions, I'll also talk about what are the reactions that are good here. But first off, using her burst is best used in comms, where your team DPS has downtime. So it can be Hu Tao. Wait, why did I write Rosara here? That's wrong. I actually wanted to write Yomiya, not Rosaria. Okay, Yomiya. So Hu Tao, Yomiya, Child, Raiden, etc. I'm very used to calling her Baal, so that she can fill the downtime gap with a little damage. So the whole point is, your main DPS has finished their DPS window, there's a downtime, you switch to Yomiya to fill the downtime gap with a little bit of her damage, because her damage is not that high per se, especially if you are using an enabler support build. And then you use more heals. But obviously, if you don't need heals, you should not be using her burst. You should be using other characters in the team. Between your main DPS and her, there's going to be 2 other characters. Okay, you're better off using those 2 other characters, either using their elemental skill to get energy, or any other type of particular interaction that you want. To me, when you're using her as an enabler support, her burst is really when you need clutch healing. So clutch healing meaning you need more healing. You need a increase in healing, for example. So what this also means is that you actually do not need to use her burst for the full burst duration. Because once the other DPS is ready, or once your healing is done, you can already end her burst. So two scenarios, if the other DPS is ready, you can go ahead and use the other DPS, or if the setup required for the other DPS, then you do the setup required. If the healing is completed, then obviously you switch to other characters. If the healing is completed, it's done, but the other DPS is not ready, the main DPS is not ready, then you can switch to your other characters and do the setup. Hopefully by then, the main DPS will be ready. If the main DPS is still ready by then obviously you just use your other characters to do elemental skills and get more energy and get your burst ready. Right? It is pretty straightforward. Okay? Now in a team comp where you have a selfish DPS that doesn't require much downtime, using her burst to heal is actually a DPS loss. Right? Because you're taking time away from that selfish DPS that doesn't require any downtime to use her attacks to heal. In that kind of scenario, when you are having a selfish DPS, like Razor for example, there is no need to use Yoimiya to heal as the healer. You're better off using someone else like Diona, Barbara, Bennett, all of those characters where you just switch them in, cast their heal, switch out. Right? So anyway, that's just my point of view in terms of how best to utilize her in the comms itself. And in terms of playstyle, her burst really is for heals and a bit of damage, a bit more damage boost, not significant. So the best thing is really just to use her burst as a downtime gap plus heal. Okay. Now another one thing I wanted to point out is that her elemental skill does not have taunt, unlike Mona. It can't be repositioned like Fisher's Oz. So your character positioning is important. Just make sure that you're near to the jellyfish, basically, which is an elemental skill. Personally, I think she looks good in freeze comp, but not the best because for freeze comp, Mona's Omen exists, and Omen at level 10 gives you 60% damage buff. It's very substantial. And I think she's very good in Electro Charge comps as well. She's going to be able to continuously enable Electro Charge without having to use Anemo to do the infusion. But I'll still love to do Anemo because Anemo with Electro Charge, how should I put it? Sword is the best. For Sword, Electro Charge is the best reaction. It allows the Electro Charge to be applied to more enemies because of the Sword, and it really quadruples the damage when you have like 4 targets. I've already done the Kazuha map video talking about how good the EC is, so if you need a reference on that, just check out my Kazuha map video. We are talking about 600 plus K in the matter of his burst duration. It's still pretty good for Electro Charge reaction. Okay, that's just the Electro Charge reactions, by the way. Right, now for Vaporize, since she can trigger every tick, it may fall into a situation where she's the one triggering the Vaporize. Actual gameplay testing will be required for Vaporize, and there's one thing I forgot to say here, which is that for Yoimiya, most likely you will be able to be Yoimiya will be able to be the one who will trigger the Vaporize. Because Kokomi's tick is every 2 seconds, whereas Yoimiya's ICD is 2.5 seconds. So Yoimiya will still be able to trigger her Vaporize. It's just that, you know, Yoimiya has a problem where she can only trigger Vaporize once every 2.5 seconds. Okay, so anyway, this I will test out, and I will probably test out Electro Charge in a different way. That's my point, my very last point in this video, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, now we talk about Constellations. It's a huge session. Bear with me. So C1 provides about 52 to 56% boost during her burst. Since right now we are using an burst support build, our burst damage is lower. So that flat damage increase from C1 becomes greater. But again, using her burst for DPS is not the focus here. That's why I spent so much time talking about that earlier. I see her burst as a clutch healing really, and a bit of damage filling. Downtime, DPS, your actual main DPS downtime get filler. C2, this is the same point that I talked about in my previous, in the first Kokomi main math video. Essentially, the C2 does not increase the healing bonus attribute, so there's no increased damage boost. I just want to make sure that's clear. That's why I'm repeating it here. But C2 does provide about 34 to 60% heal, depending on your talent levels. But honestly speaking, is that much heal really required and worth spending Primo Gems for? Not to mention, once the character is healed above 50% HP, your C2 effect is no longer active. Then why would I want to spend so many Primo Gems? Potentially 4-5 stars, because if you're unlucky and lose every 50-50, C0 C2 is 4-5 stars. 4-5 stars worth of pulls for a conditional or situational boost in your heal. Not good. I mean, sure, I get that the meta is going to shift towards having healers being more important than shielders. Given that there's corrosive effect upcoming, there is true damage from the new wolf looking mob. But ask yourself this, is this going to be so high damage that you need to spend on your Primo Gems to get more heal? I highly doubt so, because if that's the case, Miho is making the content a bit way too difficult for casual players, right? It's a bit way too difficult for casual players. So no, I don't think we would need that type of heal. I don't think we will need investment to C2 to get the kind of heals required for a new meta. I don't think so. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. Okay, so C3, first damage is the same. You get about a 7% damage increase because of her A4, diminishing returns in this case. And in terms of the healing boost from the C3, which is 3 levels, basically it provides about 18.8% on 2 seconds of a burst normal attacks, but flat value wise, the difference is actually only about 600% HP heal in 2 seconds. So it's not that great, honestly speaking. You heal an additional 600 HP in 2 seconds. So yeah, my Zhongli C6 shield heals me more than that, honestly speaking. So not great. C4 increases attack speed by 10%, but that's hit lag, so hard to say how it really improves for DPS. This one is pretty much the same as my first video. No change, even as a sub DPS. The only thing is the energy restoration effect is quite nice. But as a sub DPS, like I said, you're focused on her elemental skill. Her burst is only used when you need more healing. So why would you need energy restoration in this case? Right? Yeah, not good. C5. Now, C5 increases the elemental skill. It's decent, given that we are mainly focused on elemental skill here, but it's C5. Are you telling me you're going to spend C5 when C1 to 4 aren't that great just for a C5 that is increasing 3 levels of her elemental skill? I'm sorry, but it is not good. C6 provides a nice 40% hydro bonus, but it's too conditional, too situational, too dependent. So I believe I already talked about this in my first Kokomi math video. So the problem with it is that it's just too conditional. There's 40% hydro damage bonus. So all in all, for an enabler support build, I'll say C0 is good enough. You don't even need C1. Because Kokomi main math video, for Kokomi main DPS, C1 is pretty nice. But for enabler support build, C0 is good enough. Unless you're greedy for more damage during her burst and you want more heals and you're willing to spend for that, then by all means go ahead, it's your money. Spend responsibly within your means. But my personal recommendation is C0. Okay? And in fact, that's what I'm going to be going for too. Recently, I've decided I want to cut down on my Genshin pet spending. So I'm not even doing max refills every day now. I've cut it down to 4 refills instead of 6 refills because the cost for the last 2 refills is the same as the cost of the first 4 refills. So yeah, we are cutting down our expenditure on Genshin until we get some really good characters again. But for Kokomi, yeah. And for the reruns, honestly speaking, the only one I'm interested in is Albedo. I want to get my C2 at least for the defense skilling, since I already built him fully skilled with defense. I only have a C0 Albedo. So yeah, in terms of the other rerun banners, probably not gonna have to spend on them. So it's actually a perfect chance for me to start cutting down my Genshin spending. Okay, but anyway, that is a bit of a sidetrack. Now let's talk about the artifact main stats, how to permutate between the Sense, Goblet, and Headpiece. So there are three main options to look at here, although I permitted 5 as per the table above, but the remaining two are worse off, namely these two, triple HP and HP Hydro HP. These two options are the bottom 4th and 5th, so I did not want to talk about them. They are just not worth pursuing. Okay, so outside of a burst on her level 9 elemental skill, attack Hydro healing bonus provides the best or the highest elemental skill damage. Is about 2.2k per tick. It's really low. I know her elemental skill damage is low. Her elemental skill suffers from speed skilling, where the damage is based on attack but the healing is based on HP. Kinda unfortunate, but that's just the way it is right now. And this combination does give you the lowest heal. It's only about 6.2k per tick. While the HP healing bonus obviously gives you the best heals, about 7.7k per tick, but does give you the worst elemental skill damage, only 1.3k. I mean, this is really bad. I mean, 2.2k wasn't good to begin with, but 1.3k is like, okay. I can do that with my Kazuha sub DPS normal attacks at level 1 talent. So yeah, that's why I say it's an enabler, it's not a sub DPS. Okay, next is HP Hydro healing bonus. So HP Hydro healing bonus is balanced between the two. We have 1.8k damage and 7k heal per tick. Before I talk about which is the best, let's talk about during her burst. With talent levels 199, which means normal attack 1, elemental skill 9, burst 9. Attack Hydro healing bonus no longer has the highest elemental skill damage, because during her burst, her skill damage gets a HP skilling. Okay. The normal attack damage during burst is also second, not the highest, with this particular combination. Attack Sense, Hydro Goblet, healing bonus, hit piece. And normal attack heals and elemental skill heals are the worst. While the second option, double HP with healing bonus, provides the best heals for both normal attack and elemental skill, but has the worst damage throughout. So third option has the best damage throughout during her bursts, HP Hydro healing bonus, while having balanced heals, which means that the heal is not as good as B, but it's better than A. Now, if you want to see how it looks like during her burst, let's look at the rate figures. So this is the HP Hydro healing bonus. So you see that the heal is at 4.6k or 3.3k, depending on which one you want to compare, whether it's C0 or C2. You'll see that the HP healing bonus obviously is better heal, and the attack healing bonus and attack Hydro and healing bonus is not that great. Okay, maybe I should just freeze the screen for a moment so you guys can see. Yeah. So at least I hope this is clearer now. So when we look at the comparison here, you'll see that the C0R1, it does more damage with this HP Hydro healing bonus during her burst, the most damage. And likewise for the elemental skill DOT, during her burst, you also deal this amount of damage. That's not bad. It increases the elemental skill damage by quite a significant amount, so that's nice. But remember, it's an enabler support build. You should be using the burst for heals and a slight increase in should I say slight? For a boost in damage, but it's still an overall loss in damage if you compare to your main DPS. That's why I keep saying this is a downtime gap filler. Okay? If you're looking to use her as an enabler support, because you're not focused on damage, right? Alright, so this is it for the artifact permutation. So, it's really up to you whether you want the best permutation outside or during her burst. Personally, I would recommend HP Hydro Healing Bonus. Why? Because it's balanced outside of her burst, and yet it provides the best damage during her burst. But obviously, you can use any other main stat options in A or B if they are better rolled until you get well rolled ones for C, which is the one that I recommended. But that's because I feel that getting the best damage during her bursts is a bit more helpful, even if it's a downtime gap filler. And having balanced heals should be sufficient. I don't think I need to sacrifice even more damage for better heals. It feels to me like a balanced heal figure is good enough. And by balanced heal figure, what I'm talking about is like this, where you get 3.3k in 2 seconds of normal attack damage, coupled with another tick of 5.7k heal. And that's level 6 elemental skill, sorry. Level 9 elemental skill would be 7k. So level 199 talent, I can get a 10k heal every 2 seconds. It's already good enough using this particular permutation. I don't think I need to sacrifice a Hydro Goblet for a HP Goblet. But again, if you do not have a good Hydro Goblet and you have a good HP Goblet, then obviously use the HP Goblet. Even if it may not be as good in terms of the permutation, the rolls and the upgrades of the artifacts is more important in my opinion. Okay. Now let's talk about the artifact set. Now bear in mind, this is for Kokomi as an enabler support attempting to provide attack buff too. Let me just change the music here. Yeah, sorry. This is the problem when my videos go on for too long. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is I was talking about the artifact set. Okay, so we are using 4-piece TToM because we want to provide attack buff too. But if you want to focus on heals rather than attack buff, obviously a 4-piece Maiden with either Everlasting Moonglow or Prototype Ember would be better. But then again, remember that what people like to call support showcase. So that is the very reason why I think attack buff is better. Because having all 3 characters being able to buff your main DPS will make your main DPS deal super damage. Okay, so a 68% attack buff with 4-piece TToM and the Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer is very, very substantial. Okay, I mean it's more than that sense, man. Right, now let's talk about her enabler / support role, break it down in detail. Sort of almost like a TLDR already. So enabler, the recent buff in beta to her elemental skill allowing you to trigger reaction every tick makes her a really good enabler. As for her support role in terms of heals, level 9 elemental skill heals from 6.2k to 7.7k per tick depending on your artifact combination. Wait, that reminds me, let me unfreeze the panes. Yeah, we're not looking at artifacts anymore. This is much better. Okay, so the way to make her elemental skill be permanently on the field thanks to her A1 skill is that you need to use her burst 8 seconds into her elemental skill to achieve the permanent uptime, so that it refreshes the duration. 8 seconds into her burst, 8 seconds into her elemental skill, you use a burst, you will refresh her elemental skill to last another 12 seconds. So 12 plus 8 is the cooldown, which is 20 seconds is the cooldown of her elemental skill. That is how you achieve a permanent uptime. So in a way, right, if you have someone like Raiden who has a 7-second duration DPS window, you basically After you are done with casting her elemental skill and doing all the damage, you switch back to Kokomi and use her burst. You are able to achieve perma uptime on her elemental skill. It's just nice actually. Also factoring in setup. Okay, slight delay actually if you factor in setup, but it's good enough. It's still perma uptime because the way it works is that as long as 8 seconds to 12 seconds, between the 8 seconds to 12 seconds into her elemental skill, as long as you cast her burst, you will achieve a perma uptime. So for someone like Raiden, you have a 7-second duration, and then you cast her other character. You use the other characters to cast their stuff and do setup for the burst. It would take less than 12 seconds. And then you go back to your Kokomi, you use her burst, and it's perma uptime. So now do you see why she's in 2.1 together with Raiden? I have not even started talking about electric charge reactions, man. Oh wait, I did, right? I talked a bit about it. So I really think that the Kokomi is gonna work very well with Raiden. Yeah. So for comparison, Diona's heal with 4-piece Maiden is about 7 to 8k per tick, but it's restricted by burst down time and energy. Her heal with 4-piece Nobliss is around 4k if you use a HP hit piece. So this is based on my actual in-game experience with Diona. Before I started wheeling, I was using Diona with 4-piece Maiden because I needed more heals. Eventually I switched to 4-piece Nobliss because I wanted stronger shield and attack buff from her. So yes, I'll say Kokomi heals are pretty good because her elemental skill that you can keep up with perma uptime heals almost the same amount as Diona's burst with a 4-piece Maiden, by the way. If I use a 4-piece Maiden on Kokomi, it will definitely heal even more than Diona. So heals wise, her support role as a healer is definitely good, no doubt about that. So attack buff. Being a catalyst means she can use Trillion Tales of Dragon Slayer, and since the elemental skill can proc TToM consistently, which is Millilith set, provided your positioning is done correctly, she's able to fulfill the role of an attack buffer through pretty much F2P itemization, right? Because one is artifacts, you don't need gacha per se to get it, and the artifact rolls on her are also easier. You don't need max resin refill every day to get the usable artifacts on her. And TToDS is a 3-star weapon from gacha. It's from gacha, yes, but it's a 3-star weapon. If you're not too unlucky, you should already have a R5 TToDS by now. I mean, my friends who are pure F2P do have a R5 TToDS. On my sub account, I also have a R5 TToDS. So yeah, this is pretty much F2P. Okay, so TLDR. Let's finally talk about the TLDR. So basically, the recent buff to her elemental skill in beta pretty much solidifies her position as an enabler slash support, with her burst being an option to heal and deal more damage during the main DPS downtime. Downtime get filler, okay? And this rule is extremely F2P friendly. The weapon is 3-star, Constellation C0 is good enough. Artifact is 4-piece Millilith. So you do heals, you do attack buff, and you do enabler. It's pretty good, honestly speaking. It's pretty good. So I personally, I'm going to start at C0 for her too, and I'll build her as an enabler support. This is how I will build her. And I'll build her with the HP Hydro as well as healing bonus, provided we can get good ones for those. Because I did keep my Millilith artifacts, but the ones I kept are all with crit. So now I need to re-farm those without crit. Because those with crit that I have may not necessarily have, say, HP percentage, attack percentage, ER percentage, EM, or flat HP. So yeah. Alright, now that concludes the video for Kokomi in terms of the enabler support. The very last thing I want to talk about is just an important note. My initial plan next video was for sub DPS as per my poll, but after further consideration I believe it's actually more effective for main DPS. It's actually a full EM build in an Electro charge comp. Sure, you get lower heals, lower burst normal attack damage, but you get high Electro charge reaction damage. But the thing is, it requires her to be the one who procs the EC triggers, which for the case of how Electro Charge works, it's safer if she's the one attacking more often than not, so that she will be the last one to apply or add on more Hydro. Add on to the gauge. Then when the EC tick happens, it will be considered as her triggering. Yeah, so sub DPS is not that great for this full EM build. You might end up in a scenario where you don't proc as often as you want to, and the EM is then wasted. Especially since her kit doesn't make use of EM, right? Unlike Kazuha, full EM or Kazuha, you get to give damage buff to your opponents as well, to your teammates as well, not opponents, to your teammates as well. So that's really good. And then you have C6 Sucrose who does the same. Not based on EM, but based on her infusion, she gets a 20% damage buff as well to the specific element. Anyway, so this is a bit of an unconventional build, seeing as the Kokomi's entire build is really revolving around HP and healing bonus. So let me know in the comments if there's any interest in this unconventional build, and based on the response level, if it's strong, I'll see whether to do a video on it. But for now, I'll drop sub DPS as a category, and my next video should be weapon comparison. If you guys don't mind, let me know in the comments as well whether you want to see weapon comparison for main DPS or weapon comparison for enabler support. I'm fine doing either one first, not much of a diff to me. It's still math that I need to do anyway. So yeah, anyway, just let me know in the comments. And I hope this video has been helpful to you guys. If you like the content, remember to like the video and click subscribe for more. Thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, I think I've already covered quite a bit, so feel free to check out the specific sections on the specific information. Okay? Alright, bye.